is, hi everybody out there. We can't see any of you, but I'm sure there's thousands. Welcome to this evening. We have here David Shore, who is the creator and showrunner of The Good Doctor, and actors Freddie Highmore and Fiona Gupelman. Hi everybody. We were gonna have Dr. Sagi Asa he's a senior pediatric cardiologist who's from the Save a Child's Heart in Holon, Israel, but he actually has surgery in the morning, so you're gonna have fake doctors instead. I'm so happy you're here. You bought these tickets, which is amazing because all the money is going towards Save a Child's Heart, and we are raising, I believe, money for one little girl in particular for her surgery, and we've raised several $1,000s, so thank you. Tonight's program is hosted by Save a Child's Heart, which, if you don't know already, is an Israeli-based international humanitarian project, and it provides life-saving heart surgery and follow-up care for children from developing countries. Their mission is to improve the quality of pediatric care for children who suffer from congenital heart disease and create centers of competence in all those countries that they're working with. But tonight, you are here to listen to a fascinating conversation with the people who bring you The Good Doctor. Sorry, I don't know how to turn that off on my computer. We will start with David Shore because David is very involved with this organization. In fact, when I was on House, we took a cast trip and visited Save a Child's Heart, which was really incredible and very, very moving. And David has been very involved with them since then. So David, take it away and let's talk a little bit about Save a Child's Heart.
Well, yeah, my first visit there was with Lisa. Yeah, that was my first time there. I heard about the organization before that, but that was my first time there. And it was amazing. If anybody has the chance, if we're ever able to travel again in our lifetimes, I would recommend going there and checking it out. It really is inspiring. It kind of literally changed my life, but it certainly changes the life of these children. You go there, you meet these kids, you meet the mothers, you see these people waiting for their children in surgery, and this is an organization. There's so many great organizations out there that want your money and deserve your money, and they make if I can use this term, a shitty situation slightly less shitty. What I love about this organization is for these individual children, it's not a shitty situation afterwards. They literally cure these kids. These kids come in dying, low energy, low strength, they lack of oxygenation, and they go back home weeks or months later, healthy children who would live healthy lives. And we keep hearing stories about second generations of this. There's a doctor in San Jose right now who spoke at one of our events whose life was literally saved by Save a Child's Heart when she was a child, and she grew up and probably largely because of that experience became a doctor and is now saving lives herself. There is somebody running an orphanage in Tanzania, I think, whose life, and Tanzania, Ethiopia, my wife, I think, just corrected me, in Ethiopia, who his life was saved, and then he had a child there who was looking a little bluish to him because of his experience. He saw the problem, called up doctors from Israel, and second generation saved. So, the politics are kind of obvious as well, in the sense that there are no politics, since it's just a wonderful organization that just does wonderful things. And so, we're not here to talk about it at length, but it's a wonderful organization that is near and dear to my heart. And I know Fiona has been a big supporter, and Freddie's been a big supporter, and we thank you guys for being here. And
I'm not at all. I'm just terrible.
I know Lisa opened it, but Lisa, these guys are more recent supporters. Lisa's been involved for years, and I'm counting on Freddie and Fiona to be involved for years. So,
well, hopefully we can do a Good Doctor trip. I mean, it feels like if David, you managed to organize this on your previous show, then hopefully we will all get to a stage where we can do our own Good Doctor visit.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, it is a great idea.
And then Lisa, you can do both, given that you given that you managed to come and do
I
something on
represent
our
all
show too.
television doctors. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and this organization, David, it inspired you for one of the episodes, season 1.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. There was a documentary. What's it called? Fiona, you were just watching it, right?
Oh God, yes.
A heartbeat away.
Yeah,
Away.
that's right.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to see it, write somebody and we'll get it to you. It was a story about these doctors from Israel going to which country did they go to in this case? They go everywhere.
To
It was
Tanzania.
in this case.
Yeah.
And they meet, one of the sad things is they are limited as to how many they can save and what the conditions, and prioritize a certain amount of triage. And with your help, everybody, they can save more. So thank you very much. But they go there, and it's this wonderful story about trying to figure out, can they help this child? Can they help this child? And they do. I'm going to spoil the ending. They help this child. And he's he was, children tend to be charismatic and photogenic. This kid just, stole your heart. And we did a similar episode, I owe them. We did an episode of The Good Doctor based on that.
Do you give them residuals from that episode?
No, I do not.
Interesting.
They all go to save a child's heart.
Yeah.
Well, yes.
I was just going to say too, I was, one of the things just like from the discussions we've had and what I've learned about the organization is how it's $15,000 is all it takes to save one child's life. And that number seems so low when you think about how much good it can do and how much, how the ripple effect it can have over the years. So it's amazing knowing that. It's such a small
Is anybody being driven crazy by the barking dogs outside my office? Can you hear it?
No.
I heard one, yeah.
Okay, because they are going crazy out there. I haven't let them in. So they're like, let me in. Anyway, yes.
If anybody's, for those viewers in America, you basically can't get a boil removed for $15,000 in America. And then these doctors and the entire staff, it's an entire team over there. They volunteer their time, and so many people volunteer their time. And for $15,000, they fly a child in, put that child up, do heart surgery on that child, take care of that child through the recovery, and send them home. It is truly amazing.
It's also the fact that, and I feel definitely in the UK, I've just always taken healthcare for granted in some ways, and you imagine that it will always be there. And I feel like what's wonderful about Save a Child's Heart is these kids, some of the surgeries aren't that complicated. I mean, I couldn't do them. I have no real knowledge at all about how to do heart surgery, but they're not revolutionary procedures. These are things that can be done so simply in the country that I grew up and in America, and that it's just having access to it and the opportunity to go in and do a procedure that is life-changing. And it feels like something that everyone should have the opportunity to do.
Yeah,
and thank you everybody, because all your tickets just went to save a life, which is pretty amazing. Guys, you started shooting already. That's kind of that's amazing. Also, considering we're in a worldwide pandemic, I'm sure that real doctors are dealing with their own protocols. What kind of protocols are you dealing with COVID at work?
For us, we're getting tested at least 3 times a week, sometimes more, just depending on work schedule and circumstances. Everyone's wearing masks. Everyone's wearing goggles with safety on the sides. There's hand washing stations, hand sanitizer galore. People are standing, social distancing. So it's definitely, it looks very, very different compared to what it's been like in seasons past.
There's somebody walking around the set with a big 6-foot pole.
Yeah.
And if he sees anybody standing too close together, he comes by with that pole. And
yeah, at Warner Brothers, they won't let you face each other talking for more than 6 minutes at a time.
Oh wow! During the scenes, or just anywhere at any point?
Well, we start shooting Kaminsky next week, and we've been told that if a scene takes longer than that, we will have to take a break.
Huh.
But I just heard that the CDC said it's not 15 consecutive minutes, it's 15 minutes over a 24-hour period of exposure. So I'm not sure that idea really works.
Yeah.
When
We've been
actors
fortunate not to
like
have, yeah, we've
say
been
that-
fortunate not to have the tests that go all the way
Yeah.
up there.
Oh, us too,
I-
halfway up. I'm like picking my nose to show you. It's so
Exactly. That's what I do. I refer to it as the similar feeling to picking someone's nose, and then I realize that
I don't know what
gives
you're
across.
talking about. I'm a
I
lady.
find it very comforting. Yeah.
I'm a lady. I don't know what you're talking about.
No,
But
I always
Lisa
think
gets
it's nice-
tested, you were saying 7 times. Lisa's on every show on television. So she's getting tested like she can't go 15 minutes without getting tested right now. You're on 2 shows. Each of them has its own protocol.
Yeah, 7 times a week because I'm on 2 different studios protocols, one for Kaminsky Method and one for Lone Star. I might lose a septum over all this testing.
Be thankful you still have it.
Thankfully, they're still there. They're holding on. So, guys, can you tell us a little bit about season 2 and what people can expect to see this year?
Well, the first 2 we are certainly. Sorry, I just launched in straight away. Then instead of letting anyone else, David is probably better placed to talk about the show that he's written rather than me do a poor man's imitation of saying.
You did read the script, though, didn't you?
Yes. No, I did. Yeah. No, we're already on episode. It's sort of remarkable how you start shooting and then now we're doing episode 5 already. And it just, once the procedures are in place and it's safe to go, it just somehow keeps on going. But yes, the first 2 episodes are very much focused around the coronavirus and the epidemic and the way that the pandemic and the way that our doctors are dealing with it on the show. And it felt, I mean, David can probably, I'm just going to constantly say David could speak better than me on this point, but given that he's shaking his head, I will just continue. But it felt important to us to make, the whole season isn't going to be about the coronavirus, but it felt wrong, especially to the medical professionals who have been putting their lives at risk like never before in these last few months, not to do our version of it and to pay tribute to them by showing how the doctors on The Good Doctor are dealing with it. And it also just puts into perspective how fortunate we are to not be real doctors in this moment. And you just have such it makes you, if one never is, I feel like this moment in time has made all of us so grateful for the true healthcare professionals who are doing what we only have to pretend to do. And we talk about wearing our masks and we do all of these different procedures to keep ourselves safe, but it's nothing compared to the reality to everyone else.
It's interesting that you chose to do that, David, because I think for most creatives, it's been really confusing how much of COVID to bring into what they're making right now. It's not going to air for however many months, and what will life look like then? I know a lot of writers are really struggling with classroom scenes. Like, will there be classroom scenes? Are kids wearing masks? Will the protocols be gone in a year? So it is an interesting challenge to try and think 6 months in the future. And how much responsibility do you feel that you have to sort of bring this experience with you into what you're creating?
Yeah, it was, there was a lot of debate in the writer's room, not really debate, but a lot of discussion. I think we decided we owed it, we had a responsibility to do it. And it's also very dramatic. And it's also, it would kind of be dishonest not to do it, to do a show about doctors and not deal with the thing that has consumed not every single human being's life for the last 6 months. To ignore that would just be dishonest. But it was a real challenge because it's not something that happened. It's something that is happening. And I don't know what it's going to be like a few months from now. We kind of embraced that in the episode. Like, our doctors are wrong about certain things at the beginning of the episode, and their knowledge evolves during it. But still, there's only so much we could do because we don't know what the end was going to be like. And then we've got the problem going forward beyond that, what you're referring to as well. Do we, in the episodes after that, do we show it as the world is right now? The first 2 episodes take place over 6 months or whatever. It takes place over a long period of time as the pandemic is raging through society. And to be honest, when we started working on it, we kind of thought it'll be over by then. We started working on it in April. We were thinking, it's October, November when it's going to air, but it obviously is not behind us. And so what do we do in the episodes that follow that? Because to be honest, as I said, I think we owe an obligation to tell an honest story about what's going on. But I think we also owe it to our audience to get back to what this show is. And
it's very hard to just have masks on. If you're really telling this story right now, everybody would have their face completely covered.
And I think that would distract from the other stories we are telling within that world.
Yeah.
And it would be such a huge thing, overwhelming everything else, that it would just prevent us from telling those stories. So we decided not to do that beyond those first 2 episodes. But then we worried, are we sending a message that it's okay to walk around without masks? And so we're going to have a message before the episodes after that basically saying, we took the precautions that Freddie and Fiona were talking about before. Yeah. These episodes, it's a show about hope. Freddie probably has the speech memorized. It's a show about hope. And this is what we hope the future will look like. And everybody, please be responsible. We are being responsible. We are doing our best. Everybody should do likewise.
That's great. Yeah, it's political. And it shouldn't be. But it is amazing that we have to have a disclaimer like that, and it's incredibly important that you take the responsibility to do it, because the truth is, like, what else? People are watching so much television right now. They're streaming shows. They're at home. They're stuck at home. They've been stuck at home. So in a funny way, the world of entertainment has become more important to help people get through this time period. And we have to both embrace what we're all going through and also give people a little bit of an escape from it. Think about something else. And I think medical shows in particular are very satisfying to people because you resolve problems. You have this scary medical situation and you resolve it. So all the more important.
They're also very humanizing because everyone deals with loss and health issues. And even if you can't connect in every single episode to what they're talking about, we all know what that feeling is like. And so it's sort of something that connects all people together, regardless of where you come from. And just the message, like the thing that I've loved so much about being on this show is just like, we talk about hope and we talk about inspiration and we talk about just being an uplifting thing for people. And that's when I meet people that are fans of the show and they talk to me about, their own lives and how the show has impacted them and how it's helped them and inspired them for a variety of reasons. Like, that's one of the greatest feelings to have. Yeah. So I'm glad that we can still continue to do that safely.
Yeah. And that it's not, Sean isn't judgmental and the show isn't about, it's about recognizing our differences, but also celebrating them and tolerating them. And even though we all have many differences between us, we're more the same than different. And I think that feels like a message that, in an ever more divisive world, is one that everyone can hopefully get behind. And actually, I guess it was going to be a neat segue, but now I've said this, it's going to be a very obvious segue, but it feels very like Save a Child's Heart in the sense of building bridges in the community. And it feels like The Good Doctor is a perfect companion in that way, that they, in that charity organization, it doesn't matter where you come from, what gender you are, how much money you have, your politics, your any of it, that's all irrelevant. And it's just ultimately about the people and the person and trying to save these kids in the same way that The Good Doctor is about. Celebrating each of us for who we are, and not coming with judgment, not saying like, I know who you are before you've even met the person or before they've had a chance to speak.
I remember, David, talking with you once, I think season 2, about, it's just some of the different subject matters for the episodes, and how you mentioned that it was so important to you when you're presenting, like every episode, when you're, when there's a storyline, and sometimes it's a controversial topic, how you work so hard to make sure that both sides are properly represented, and that it's really about sparking conversation and discussion about ideas instead of passing judgment through the show. And I that's something that I also really admire about it. Like, that's just, Freddie just reminded me of that conversation we had. So
Yeah, yeah, I don't believe a TV show can change minds, but it can open a mind a little bit. It can make you ask questions, and ask questions in a way you might not have before. And I believe that there are very few actual evil people in this world. I think there are good people who don't necessarily, I've been challenged of late, but good people who disagree. The people who disagree with you are disagreeing with you not because they're bad people. Usually they're disagreeing because they've reached different conclusions. And I think it just makes us all better if we just keep talking things through and thinking about things through and challenging ourselves and challenging each other, but challenging each other honestly, not just dismissing people who come from different backgrounds, different points of view. It only makes us better to simply be exposed to other ideas and other people and other backgrounds, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. And that's really very much what The Good Doctor tries to embrace. I mean, even in the lead character, you're talking about people who can easily be dismissed as an other, who have become an intricate part of the story in many people's lives in the world of The Good Doctor. I want to take some questions from our audience. Are you guys open to that?
yeah.
Yeah.
We might not answer them, but go ahead and ask them.
Oh, the only other thing I was going to say,
Yes,
Lisa, when you were saying about this season is, thank you. I know, I feel like I have to ask you for permission. It's just these new wonderful new cast that we've got this year. So there's like these new residents, and towards the beginning of the season, we get to introduce these wonderful new characters who are going to become a part of the show. And for the doctors like Sean and Morgan Resnick and the others that have been at our level in the hospital, all of a sudden we have to take responsibility for the training of other people, and for bringing other people into the fold. And I guess from Sean's perspective, it's both imparting medical wisdom that he does know very well, but also the managing of people and personas, and welcoming new people into the fold that he might struggle with a little bit more. But it is really exciting to have a new group of people, although I feel sorry for them because they don't get to meet any of the crew at all except with masks. Like, we at least knew most of the crew from before, but for these new people coming to a city, Vancouver, that they've never been to, it's like, who are you? Like, what am I doing here?
I think name tags are all the more important right now.
Yeah.
And you could do like what I've seen real doctors do in the emergency room, which is put their pictures of themselves without masks on their gowns.
We did
That's
that.
part episode 1 and 2. You'll see them wearing those.
But it'd be good to have the crew be able to do that, because I find that knowing,
That's a good idea.
getting to know people by name and face, which you can't do when their face is covered, it really helps.
They have these, credit card size badges with the picture of themselves and their name on it. Sometimes it's hard to see, but they definitely have it.
Or you have to get too close to actually see.
Exactly. I like it that when actors walk on stage now, everybody, you hear, at least at Fox, you hear shields down. Everybody has to put their face shields down when we enter the stage. And you'd think it's for our protection, but it's really for their protection from us, because we are like viral bombs walking around because we have to act with no mask on. So we're the most exposed people on set. So I've decided they're trying to secretly protect themselves from the dirty actors. All right, let's see. Freddie, are you going to write and direct this year?
I will be able to direct, yes. I'm not going to be writing this year.
David, did you?
I know that's
that really is a question for me, isn't it? Yeah.
David is allowing me to direct, but not to write. No,
Freddie will be. Freddie's a rather talented young man. Yeah. He'll be directing. He unfortunately he wrote an episode 2 years ago and didn't have the time last year, because what that involves is him getting down here to LA and working with us. And
I feel like I was in one of those episodes. The first
You were
episode.
in the first, yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And whatever character that
I literally walked
decided-
on stage, and then Richard Schiff changed all the lines. I was like,
So
all
good.
right, got it. And scene. But it was fun. It's super fun.
But no, I love
I multiple
yeah.
hats. It's really refreshing to do that, isn't it?
Lisa
No, very-
directs as well. Yes,
Yeah.
she's done some excellent stuff. Yeah.
Hopefully he'll come.
Freddie likes the cranes. Freddie just likes the cranes.
with directing, and I actually tried to write in, I think, a few crane shots, but they're to tell the story. And then you said we don't
You
really
keep
write
saying
these sort of
that.
things in. they're never there, or at least I hope they're never there to be indulgent. They're always there to try and tell the story visually and
We did
in some shape or form.
We did a lot of crane shots on House, like surgery scene crane shots.
Oh, don't let him off the hook. Don't let him off the hook. He just drove the.
Well,
Freddie
when you-
could sit
when
there.
you
I
let
took a
me
good
direct-
picture.
When you let me direct The Good Doctor, I'm gonna do like sweeping drone shots. So it's ready. That's what I'm gonna do. Like, through the whole hospital.
We've never got a drone in, so that would be that's
What a nice
probably the
big
next
set.
one.
That's something to.
Yeah, That's
I
my
hunch we will
that's
soon,
my
though, right?
pitch. That's my pitch.
And you'll
to
be-
the tour.
You'll be directing as well, David, I imagine. I mean, let's hope. Yeah.
Let's hope so. But yeah, the last 2 years I directed the last episode of each of those 2 seasons
Nice.
and had a great time.
Nice. David, question for you. Are you getting your cases from Real Cases? And do you have a specific resource, or do you sort of grab them from multiple places?
We have lots of resources. I am not a good researcher. I actively try, and the things that excite me about the episodes are not the medical cases. They're obviously really important, but that's the short answer. It's not even a short answer. The answer is we have so much help. We have so many good doctors who are consultants. We have one who reads every outline and reads every script. We have a specialist an autism specialist who reads every outline and every script. We have one of our writers is a doctor. We have a nurse on set all the time. We will call in other doctors on occasion and just, have them tell us stories. And we also have researchers who are just, reviewing newspaper articles in the New England Journal of Medicine. It was the same thing on House, as I'm sure you know. It was never like that medical story becomes an episode. It was, oh, that's an interesting situation. That's an interesting cluster of symptoms that could give rise to something else. It always leads to a discussion, and then you talk to the doctors about making sure it's accurate. But we're not recreating medical stories, but we strive to be accurate. We strive to make it possible and plausible and realistic. We're aware of the fact, you don't want to give false hope and you don't want to give false fear.
Right.
So,
and you can take a situation that would be highly unlikely but possible. It's more dramatic when you tell that story. I remember, and I don't know if you guys have your favorite worst line of medical jargon, but I still have mine.
Oh,
You
really?
can still remember it?
Oh yeah, because it was
Wow.
a nightmare. It was enamrenone can cause arrhythmia and thrombocytopenia.
Sounds like a store would give you.
well done.
Thank you. You're welcome.
I hope we didn't cut it in editing. That would
I
have been.
hope so too, because it's seared. It's seared. I just remember it was in the MRI room. I had it on my clipboard because enamrenone is not, it's got an M and an R next to each other, which is not commonly used in the English language. Unfriendly. Does anybody else remember their worst line of medical jargon?
I can't remember my lines from yesterday.
I know. One is seared into my brain. That's how bad it was. Right. Do you have any?
I'm so bad at not my memory. I feel is relatively good, but in terms of like coming up on the spot with the medical, I mean, I can flick through. I'm sure there'll be one even in the script that we're doing now. I would read it out, but then maybe that would be a spoiler for people who are like really, really good at medicine. They'll be like, now you've ruined the whole episode for me.
It wasn't
We have
until
go ahead. Sorry.
I remember at the end of season 1, I had to answer Melendez he was like asking me how to finish up a procedure, and I had to do it like, because Morgan's delivery can be so just like robotic, like she's reading it off off the page as she's saying it, and I got through this whole paragraph, except I mess up one thing, and then Sean corrects me and he gets to do it. But I remember it was like clear anchoring sutures or clear laps or something, and I spent a week memorizing it because it was just pure medical jargon, trying to get through it. And I had to for all the medical stuff, I don't know about you, Freddie, but like I have to look up what the word is, what it means, understand it, especially if it's a procedure I'm talking about, to learn it. Otherwise, I just can't wrap my head around it.
I don't. It's much easier to just type them.
Yeah.
And then figure out how to pronounce. We get our little pronunciation guides though, and people send the and the doctors who are real doctors who know how to do it, both on the writing staff and elsewhere, they'll record them for us, which makes it much easier. I was trying to think if we had one the other day, Fiona, in the scene about and this is like really, I know, but this is really early on. I can say like a line from an like scene number 4, David.
Risk it. These people have helped save a life. Please, you can spoil it for them.
Give them something.
Yeah.
No, it's not even. It won't really make much sense to anyone. But it was the dizygotic, dichorionic, diamniotic pregnancy.
Oh, that's
and there were quite a few died, and then I feel like Sean hitting the word "die" in an overly overemphasizing the dichorionic, diamniotic, everything. It didn't give the right impression to the patient that we were trying to help. But
that was part of the joke too. She's just like, wait, what's he talking about? And I'm like, no, it's fine. But yeah, that's but the hard part too, I don't know, is like you have to know what you're saying so well, like inside and out, because you get to set, and then it's like, and you have to be doing the ultrasound here, and then you put it down, you wipe off the goo, you turn this way, Sean's putting on the, I like, it's like there's so much physical stuff you have to do, and to make it look like second nature, you have to know your lines so well when you get to set.
And that's where having like an on-set nurse really helps. I remember on House in the very beginning, we were like rushing someone into the emergency room head first, and Bobbin was like, no, because you could injure somebody's head by smashing through the door of the emergency room head first. I mean, just stuff like that, which for anybody in the medical field, many of whom love to watch these kinds of shows, it would just completely throw them out of the story. But yeah, the multitasking is pretty intense on a medical show.
It gets
Bobbin
easier
was our
though.
on-set nurse, and I think she wound up guest starring in more episodes than anybody else, because she was in the scenes, and then whenever there was something that needed to be said that hadn't been, we would give her the line, and she
She's great. All right, David, who would you rather have as your doctor, Dr. House or Freddie, or the good doctor?
Well, Freddie, if I have a choice between Dr. House and Freddie, it's easy.
Dr. Murphy.
Yeah, no, I don't have an answer for that. I guess I should choose my second wife, right? At this point, and just my first wife.
You gotta choose the wife you have right now. It's true.
Yeah, it depends on the case. It depends on the circumstance. He's a surgeon.
I feel like the last time when you did your Save a Child's Heart visit, you said the complete opposite thing.
What did I say? I said.
I'm sure you. Well, I guess there was no Dr. Murphy at that point. I'm just saying when you and Lisa made your trip, I feel like Dr. House would have been the one that you'd have gone.
But you didn't exist, so in fairness, you didn't.
Yes. That's true.
Well, you existed, but Dr. Murphy didn't. At the time,
I was around. And
definitely should have been the doctor.
I think they are both excellent doctors.
Both have a communication difficulty.
Both have a communication issue, but I will say this, because when you write something like this, you kind of live with this character. And I think Dr. Murphy is probably a more pleasant character to live with than Dr. House was. I love them both, but I love the hope that this show instills. I think they're both. I'm very proud of both of them. Very, very proud of both the characters. Very proud of both the shows and what we said and what we investigated and the questions we asked and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It is a pleasure after 8 years of that to be dealing with the show that is kind of looking at many of the same questions, but from a different perspective.
Yeah. Yeah.
A more open perspective.
Yeah, so, certainly more hopeful. Yeah, a different time too, different time.
Yeah, I think
we need different things right now.
Yeah.
We need a little hope. Freddie or David, I have to read this one because it's a long one. Will there be any chance for Sean to speak Spanish, French, or Arabic this season? Say, for instance, when working with a foreign surgeon certified in complex general surgery oncology. And can you give us a detailed description of the writing process, please?
I love the like very specific, for example.
Specific.
I think you should write that down. Then I think that's the episode there. It's pretty much it's all pitched out. I'm up for it.
Freddie. Yeah, we should do that. We've talked about that before. We just need to.
We did a little bit of Spanish that one time with Sean's neighbor in season 1, where he let loose for like one line or something. But yeah, we should definitely do something like that.
How many languages do you speak? 5?
I mean, I don't speak all of those languages fluently. I'd say Spanish is my best one, but French and Arabic and Portuguese at some stage I sort of studied those, but Spanish I think Spanish is going to be the one that we'd probably have to lean into the most. I feel it would present kind of interesting questions in terms of communication, the idea of, which is I think how we've discussed it previously, David, the Sean struggling with communication at times, but potentially being the only person who could speak the language of someone that he was trying to communicate with, and therefore being
I love the idea of a person who struggles with communications but has a real ease with language. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because it's a different part of the brain, and it's fascinating to be able to be the only one with skills to speak so many languages, but not really the skills to actually communicate.
Yeah, Dr. Resnick could be standing right beside you as you're understanding every word the person's saying, but Dr. Resnick's picking up something completely different from this person without understanding.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I think we've done that a bit too, haven't we?
Yeah, it's getting repetitive, isn't it? Yeah, the whole thing's getting tiresome. Just.
Exactly.
Let's see. All right. So the Good Doctor has already shown a history of deadly viruses in the middle of its 2nd season. I wonder if it was very difficult for the writers to write this episode since the whole world is living with this disease.
The episode, the reference is to we did a lockdown episode where there was a deadly virus loose within the emergency room area of the hospital, and it was just locked down. It was nothing compared to what society's gone through now. That was something that happens here and there, where some virus gets loose in a very isolated community, and that happens. And it's scary, and it's specific. This is so different. So I talked about this episode to open the season. It's a very different thing, and I talked about why we did it, and it was tricky. It was tricky, but when you're writing, you kind of put your head down. You have to be aware of the emotion, but you kind of, it's an intellectual process imbued with emotion, but the emotion is like, yes, this is very, very sad. Yes, this is very, very funny. And you're kind of taking that approach, and you have to be aware and you have to be good at judging that, but you're not crying generally through your writing, I will say this, I meant to add it earlier, but, and Fiona and Freddie, you should know this. And I did a couple press interviews recently, just a couple days ago, and it was interesting, the response to these first two episodes, that both of them commented that they were surprised by how moved they were and how moved they were in kind of relatively nothing settings. You know, obviously a person's dying, you get moved. The day-to-day stuff within this episode, the day-to-day portrayal of what we are all going through with COVID, they were moved by.
Yeah.
I think this has taken, in many ways, a toll. You know, where it's obvious that it's been huge, but I think the emotional toll in some ways has been even greater than we think it's been.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, Freddie mentioned this, but earlier, but it's so true. Like, I struggled going to film these two episodes because just pretending to be in the subject matter alone raised so many emotions of what we've been dealing with over this past year, and putting on all the protective gear was suffocating to me. Like, I had trouble breathing with the multiple masks on, and it was not fun. Like, it was definitely hard. And I remember like talking about this outside of work and just saying, like, it gave me such immense respect. Like, I already had respect for first responders and people working in the healthcare profession, and then like feeling so emotionally impacted by pretending it. I was like, I can't even imagine how hard it is for all these doctors and nurses, and I mean all the frontline and essential workers right now that are struggling with this. And so that's really interesting.
Well, these stories haven't been told yet. We're in the middle. We're still in it.
Oh,
So
no.
now is going to be the first time we really start seeing this experience sort of put in front of us again. And I do think it's theater, any kind of representational reenactment of what we're all going through is the way human beings have we've used that method to process what we're going through, because it's otherwise it's like we need to contain it in one place in order to process the experience. I mean, we've been doing that since we're sitting around in small tribes in front of campfires.
The place it was difficult and challenging, and you get this, and I think it's important for me to say this, is how do we make 2 hours of this not depressing? We worked very hard at that, and it's not. It is, there are certainly sad moments, very sad moments, but we were trying to examine all aspects of this and human beings being challenged and getting through it. And there are fun moments in it, and there are funny moments. And it is ultimately, as the show always is, it's a story of hope and the positivity and strength of all human beings that can come out in these situations, and about the heroes, about people rising to incredible challenges. And it's about the real heroes. And we've got a card at the beginning paying, you always feel like when you do a medical show, you feel slightly like a fraud. Every now and again, you get an award from some medical organization. You go, holy, this is just wrong. This is just, I'm a goofball Hollywood guy making up stories. You guys are doing the real thing. And it is all the more that on an episode like this, because these people are literally risking their lives. So what we did to pay them back was we put a card before the show. So I think they'll feel good about themselves.
I want to say, sorry, that I hope my message about it didn't feel like too much of a downer, but I feel like too, with one of the beautiful things that the arc over the 2 episodes, one of them that I loved was overcoming grief and how to kind of rise up from that and to carry on with our life. Because collectively, I think a lot of us are all feeling grief in some way because we're all suffering from loss. And so the message that I got from it was how to rise up from that and how to overcome that. So through one of the storylines, I don't want to talk about that one particularly.
Fiona, I do want to ask you about your character. One of our audience members she says that we've seen her softer side, we've seen her toughness. What do you look forward to in this season with her, and what are the biggest challenges that you've had in playing her?
Well, this season we're going to see Morgan kind of redefining herself and her career and kind of just her world and her place in the medical system and in the hospital. And then we're also going to get to see more of her personal and playful side as some of her storylines kind of take her outside of the hospital. And that's some fun stuff that I've really enjoyed working on. Some of the challenges with playing Morgan is that Morgan's just in many ways is very different than myself. So Morgan's a lot stiller than I am and smiles a lot less, and just like the physicality between us is so different. She has much better posture than me, and even like our vocal, like our like I talk in a much higher vocal range than when I play Morgan. Like I try to make sure I sound a lot more grounded, and if I smile, like in life I'm pretty much always smiling, but as Morgan it's very specific moments when she smiles. If she smiles, it's oftentimes more of a smirk. So just the physical, that's a huge thing. All the range of physicality differences. So
I completely relate to that. I had a very similar experience playing Cuddy, where everything was so much more contained than what I was used to being in the world, which is fun. It's like, that's what we do. We pour ourselves into containers when we play these parts.
I feel like it's made me a better actor too, because I have to really just trust like that it's there underneath, and like I have to trust that. I have to trust the writing and just like let it do its work instead of trying to make it too big. And so it's definitely taught me a lot, and it's so much fun.
Nice. Let's see. I'm looking at some more for Freddie and Fiona. There's some scenes in The Good Doctor where you two are together. In your perspective, what do you think makes a good scene partner?
Ooh. It's been fun. I mean, I guess more broadly, it's been really fun to explore the dynamic between Morgan and Sean as time has gone by. And I was going to say, and then I felt like I would just be interrupting you, Fiona, but one of the wonderful things has been seeing like Morgan. I think people probably disliked her more at the beginning, and now like understand her more. And I feel like it's nice that Sean and Morgan have developed this relationship where I think there's like a mutual respect, even if they are very different people. In terms of your specific question, I always feel somewhat bad, and maybe it's different now because people are used to Sean and acting with Sean or opposite Sean in a scene, but the fact that he doesn't really look at people, and I've always think must like throw the person that I'm doing a scene with, and I always feel very apologetic about that, because of course he is active and alive, and like he is a wonderful character to get to play, but I think it must make it challenging to play opposite him when, because of those differences and because of those idiosyncrasies, that means normal ways that you as an actor would, normal things that you would rely on in terms of solving a scene would no longer be the case. But
right.
have either of you found that?
I find when working with you, I find it a gift, honestly, when you're so present. Like, to me, a good scene partner is someone who you can trust, first of all, and then someone who is present. So like, even when the camera's not on you, they're committed to what they're doing, so both your performances are great, and you are both those things. And but when you're when you're in character, it's great, because even again, when the camera's not on you, you're still acting as Sean, and that gives me something to play off of and to react to. So I'm doing a scene with a real person, and so it doesn't throw me when you do that. Maybe it throws other people, but it just feels like I have a real person that I'm trying to communicate to. And
it didn't throw me either. I feel like it's you have created a whole world within the person that you play on that show, and so that is like any conversation in the real world, that is the person you are talking to. Yeah. And the challenges that come up because that person is autistic are real. And so those are the things you're dealing with when you're talking to that person. You know what I mean? So it is a testament to the commitment of your acting partner. And I agree totally, Fiona. It's like the more someone is present, the more fun you have, because then it's like there's real stuff happening in the scene.
Yeah. And I feel like those things are the basics and should be, and I know I've been lucky to work on shows where they are almost taken for granted, but people knowing their lines, people being present, people wanting the scene to be as good as possible, and we definitely have that on this show, which I feel very fortunate about, but
Yeah.
but
I've
the
had-
amount of people or stories that you hear of people not even doing the like very basic, like bare minimum, that seems, it just seems crazy. But on this show, it's the opposite. Yeah.
I had a scene on House with a patient who they started in the direction where you could see me, and she did the whole scene whispering. And then, so I was like, okay. And it was like whatever was going on. And when they turned it around, so the camera was facing her, she did the whole thing, heaving, crying. So when you cut it together, it looked like I was a horrible, cold
Oh my.
monster. I'm sitting there like this. Like, anyway, that never happened twice.
I can't stand that.
Yeah. So it does.
I'm sorry.
All right. I want to get a few more audience questions in because we are at 50 minutes, and I don't want people to leave without hearing their questions. If we can get to a few more, that would be great. Okay. David, I love how you are exploring neurodiversity on this show, and I was wondering if you've considered touching on the effects of fetal alcohol spectrum disorder.
That sounds interesting. We have not, but it's certainly an interesting area that we should probably look into. Thank you.
You're welcome. You'll send them the check?
Again, no.
You'll donate it. You'll donate the check.
Yeah.
To Save a Child's Heart, which is
exactly.
Okay. What classes and clubs should I do to become a healthcare professional, says this audience member. As a healthcare worker, I appreciate that you're recognizing the frontline workers. I'm confused about this question. How did that feel as an actor to play out the crisis? I think we've covered that one. How many times does Dr. Resnick have to step in and save Sean's ass when dealing with his new interns?
I think that's a big question. I mean, we had some fun scenes though. I really love the stuff we shot in the last episode. That whole storyline with the newbies. But I don't know how many times that will be. So that's a short.
All right. We're gonna wrap up this beautiful event. We're gonna tell the story of Nizali. I don't actually have.
I may have something on her here, I think.
You have, and we're asking to sponsor this adorable young girl for what will be her $15,000 medical costs. David, take it away.
Well, the ticket sales for this event are helping us save Nizali's life. This is a 3-year-old from Zambia. We may flash a picture of this. That would be lovely. She was born with one of the most common congenital heart defects, oh, I've heard of this. We've used it on the show, and I don't know how to pronounce it.
Where's your now?
Without treatment, she would not have lived to see her teen years since COVID. Her trip to Israel was delayed. I mean, everything's more complicated right now. I should add, look, it's more complicated for everybody. It is more complicated for Save a Child's Heart. Getting children in and out of Israel, getting their families in with them. It has been delayed. It has been difficult. There she is. There she is saying thank you to everybody. Her flight was delayed. And of course, there's so much uncertainty now, and it makes it more difficult, I know, for people to help charities. People have their own concerns. Please, the charities are suffering just as much. Please reach out, if not more, frankly. So she was delayed, but she got there this summer, and with a group of 7 other children, escorted by Dr. Ziwa, who recently started in training. That's the other thing. We didn't talk about that. So
I know, I'm glad you mentioned that, yeah.
One of the, Save a Child's Heart doesn't, it's the Mark Twain line, if you give a man a fish, he'll have dinner. If you teach a man to fish, he'll never go hungry. One of the things Save a Child's Heart is doing is training doctors from these nations which don't have the services, which are the reasons they have to bring the kids to Israel. They're training doctors and entire crews, entire teams.
By the way, I did say that, just so you know, I take credit for it. I did say it at the beginning.
Oh, did you? Yeah. Sorry.
No, it is more important to stress it. That is incredibly important word.
No, thank you. I apologize, Lisa. She'll never forgive me. But just so these doctors are being trained, they come to Israel for several years and they get trained. And, the Ethiopia is a very large country, and Tanzania, a very large country. The first pediatric cardiac surgeon for each of those countries was in the last few years trained in Israel and has gone back. And these doctors and their teams are going to save thousands of lives. So he has started his training with Sash to become the first pediatric cardiac surgeon in his country. Nizali celebrated her 3rd birthday with Sash, and she'll go on to live a long and healthy life because you're able to bring her to Israel. And the cost to save her life costs $15,000, and everybody who's watching us right now has helped in that cause. And thank you very much. And please find a link, click on it, and I know it's a tough time, but trust me, you will feel so good after you make a donation.
Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. I was just seeing if there was anything else, but I think we have covered a lot of ground, and I'm really grateful for everybody coming here to support Save a Child's Heart, and we were happy to entertain you for this hour. Does anybody want to say anything else?
Thank you to everybody for joining, and thank you to everyone for donating.
Thank you all.
Likewise, and as David was saying, this is it. There are so many. Everyone has so many concerns and understandable concerns, but when you look, the photo has gone now. But when you look at Nizali, it's just one of over 5,000 children now that have been helped and whose lives have been saved by Save a Child's Heart. And so, whatever you can give is very much appreciated by every one of these children.
And thank you for Freddie and Fiona and for taking time out of your day. And thank you, Lisa, for guiding us.
We don't need any thanks.
No, yeah, thank you guys less. I will thank you guys, but I will thank you guys much less than I thank the doctors and the people actually employed by Save a Child's Heart and the people who have donated today. But I still thank you guys less, but I thank you.
All right, well, that wraps up our night, right?
I think so.
Say, lots of love to everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.